welcome to episode 1 of Descent into the Wormhole, where we discuss everything from ancient civilizations to modern day social issues and everything in between. I'm Les.
And I'm Stevie J, and today's episode will be deep diving into the topic of opinions and how everybody's allowed to have one. So grab your coffee or set that cruise control and let's get into it. Well, I tell you what, I am freaking excited to be talking about this because this podcast, this is episode number 1, like you said, and I cannot be more excited to talk about all the topics we're going to cover. But today's one, opinions. I have many, you have many, and we love talking about them. So I'm so excited to get into this. What are your thoughts and how are you feeling about our first episode?
I am excited. I am so excited to be doing this with you. And yeah, just talking about everything under the sun. I love it.
All right. Well, let's get into it then. So for everybody who's listening, like we said at the start, we're going to be talking about opinions and the fact that everyone's allowed to have them. And we're going to get into why we're all allowed to have them and how we shouldn't be ridiculed for having a different opinion to everybody else. So with that, what's a popular and unpopular opinion that you might have, Les?
Marriage is a good idea.
Ooh, that's a good one to get into straight away. And look, just full disclosure, Les and I agree on a great many things. But what we also do is we explore different ideas, right? Like we talk different things, different angles, and go through these things in different ways. But I fundamentally agree with you that marriage is not a good idea. And I feel like society has definitely put pressure on people to get married. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, what is marriage? I mean, maybe we should start there. Like, what is marriage? Because I agree with you, but what is it?
If you go by societal norms, it's a union of people who love each other, and it's a bond that shall not be broken. And it is that's how I see other people that see it, that if you really love me, you will marry me. And I am not complete unless I'm married.
Right.
That is a theme that I see a lot. Not quite sure if I saw it if I thought that myself in my earlier years. I don't know the answer to that. Probably something I have to deep dive into with myself. But at the end of the day, marriage is sold to us as something that we should do. It is something to strive for.
Right.
And if you're not married by the time you're, 30, 35, especially for women, they say it's not happening.
Yeah.
That extra added pressure. And then you feel not good enough and you feel like a lesser of a human. And then you have people looking at you and feeling sad for you because you're not married. But what those people don't understand is a lot of those people aren't happy in their marriage either.
Right.
So why are you kind of talking me into doing something if you're not happy in it?
Exactly. Well, and it's funny because you mentioned there about yourself, like your situation. And I feel like, do you reckon it's fair to say that a lot of people feel pressure to get married for all of those reasons and more, but they feel it without knowing it? Like, does that make sense? Feeling the pressure without even realizing that it's there, because it's so normal and it's become such a mainstream thing. And, people on the podcast can't see what I'm doing here, but I've got air quotes. It's the normal thing to do. And people are just so conditioned into, yes, this is what I do next. I go to school, I do this. And then, you know what? I've got to get married. But, when I asked you that question as well, what is marriage? And, I loved your answer, but it's also just like when you look at a legal sense, it's just a piece of paper.
Exactly.
Like, what makes a relationship where you have a connection, a strong bond, you have, all of those things, but you just don't have the piece of paper? What makes it any less valuable just because you don't have the bit of paper?
Exactly. And I've had conversations with people and they've said, when they're talking about their relationship, they say, oh, we're not married, we're just dating. It's
right.
Like, well, you're still together. Like, it's not just, it's almost like once you're married, it's more of an official relationship.
Right.
It's more official. Well, why should I tie in the government and tie in religion and all of these things to something that even with or without the piece of paper, that piece of paper is not changing the way I feel. That piece of paper isn't changing the way my
Yes.
partner feels. And I think for a lot of people, they feel that once they do get that piece of paper, that things will change. Things will get better.
So you mean like if things aren't all that great, maybe in the relationship, maybe the piece of paper will fix it.
Right.
Well, I mean, that just seems so nonsensical. Like when you sit back and have a look at this stuff and think about it logically, it's like how tangibly, how does a piece of paper do anything, let alone fix a relationship? People go through counseling for years and their relationship is never what you would say fixed, but let's just say they're never in a good place.
Right.
So how on earth could a piece of paper do that? But, I mean, it is definitely an unpopular opinion because, I don't know what you've had, but people definitely in social situations will say stuff like, oh, you're not married yet. Oh, don't worry, there's still time. Or, like, I'm sorry even. Like, I'm sorry you're not married yet, or I'm sorry you don't have kids or whatever it is. And I'm curious, like, unpopular opinions are something that don't affect anybody. Right. Now, I mean, there's a difference between what we say, obviously, and what we do. So everything I'm talking about with opinions and everything is to do with just verbal opinions or written opinions, not to do with action, of course, because, of course, if you start doing something physically to somebody, that's different. But when we're talking about opinions, we should all have one. And as far as I'm concerned, the opinion doesn't hurt anybody. It's not doing anything to anybody.
No.
So why do people get so upset when we disagree or have a different opinion?
Well, it's because it goes against our belief. So if I'm offended or if I'm hurt or I think you're a horrible person and I no longer want to speak to you because you have a different opinion than mine, it's because it is going against everything that I believe in, and it's actually shaking the foundation of my belief. So I need to protect that at all costs. And that's the only reason I feel, this is just my opinion, that we get really upset because it's going against everything that I believe in, and you're making me question. Well, we can't make anyone do anything. You're having me question what I believe in because you believe in this thing and you're still standing. You haven't been struck down by anything, and your life seems to be going okay. And it just goes against the grain. And for whatever reason, we hold our belief systems so tightly and we're wound in them. So it's like they've wrapped themselves around us. Yeah. And it's almost like, this is who I am because this is who I believe in. It's like they wear it as a coat.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, they wear it as a coat.
I was just going to say it's like a coat or a blanket or something like. Yeah. I'm going to wrap myself up in what I feel comfortable in, and please don't question that. Please don't question that, anybody, because I'm so afraid of having that independent thought or a different thought. That's what it seems like to me. Like because opinions don't do anything. Like they don't affect anybody except in that sense, and it's all psychological, really. It's driven by fear, as far as I can tell. Like, but my opinions are my own, and it doesn't offend me if somebody doesn't agree with me. And if somebody has a different opinion, I'm actually welcoming of it, because we should all, in my opinion, be getting as much information as possible. Let's look at, and we're going to talk about on this podcast so many different things. And we'll probably agree on a lot of it, but we probably have differences of opinions or different thoughts on different things too. Mm-hmm. So, but I see all that as a learning. Like that's a learning opportunity, isn't it? To be like, okay, well, you had this awesome thought that I'd never thought of ever before.
Yeah, and it is a learning, and maybe my opinion is outdated, or maybe it is a little skewed when it comes to the worldview. Or what if I was taught something and it's completely false? Because a lot of our belief systems and a lot of our opinions come from our childhood and what we were taught.
Yes.
And
yes.
because we're being taught by people who don't know really themselves, no one's right or wrong. Like, that's the thing. Everyone is,
Yes.
no one is right. Like, no, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to opinions.
Yeah.
And we're allowed to change our opinions. And if you're open to listening to other people and how they view the world, you may say, wow, that's a really great view and it's a really positive view. I may just adopt that. That's really great. Or if it's a really negative view and it's a very fearful view, well, you can keep it. I'm going to stay with my more positive. It's like, as you said, we get into these conversations and the thoughts that come up just kind of build on each other. And
Yeah.
then you're seeing it in a whole new light. You're almost seeing it bird's eye view to say, wait a minute, I was really closed off before, or I was looking at it from all the wrong directions.
Yeah. And being open to it's so important, I feel, because the minute that you close off to any kind of idea or opinion or thought, no matter how society might deem the idea or thought as crazy, like the minute you close off to that, you're just closing yourself off to everything, to a wider understanding maybe of the issue or the topic or whatever it might be. And not holding on to that opinion you've always had from childhood, because I feel like we get into this feedback loop almost from childhood of, okay, as soon as you're born, you're a blank canvas, a cute one probably, maybe you, not me, but a cute little canvas, and you get imprinted with all of these things, like from parents and all of those things. And it's not necessarily a criticism of parents either, because, well, they had the same imprinting from when they were a baby. And so when you grow up, you're told all these things, and you're told this is who you are. You are defined by these characteristics. And so you go through your life in that feedback loop, and you're also told this is what you believe. This is what you should believe. And should's not one of my favorite words, but so you imprinted. So by the time you grow up a bit and you're an adult, you're already kind of locked into this this thought process and this mantra of this is who I am, this is what I believe, and anything outside of that, because you also get told, well, that's an out there thought to have. That's an abnormal thing to think. So you get maybe ridiculed or whatever, but it's very much imprinted that you think what mainstream society says and you do what mainstream society says. Otherwise, you're the black sheep of the world, and you need to go and sit over there, and we'll call you crazy even because you're having these ideas.
Yeah.
But really, we should just be open to everything. And we don't have to. Being open is not the same as accepting everything that people say as gospel, but at least be open to it, at least listen to it.
And sometimes too, if you just hear what other people's opinions are without attacking them for having said opinion, we'll get into that in a little bit. But if you just listen, you may understand a little bit more of why that person is the way they are. Why they do certain things, why do they live their life a certain way, that you look at it, you're like, well, that makes sense. And then and as soon as it makes sense to you because you understand it and you have empathy for that,
yes,
it changes everything. You can have so much respect and appreciation and empathy for someone that you just could have completely hated because they saw the world from the other side of the fence.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's the that old saying, like the eye of the beholder, right? Like perception's in the eye of the beholder. So like for that person, they may have had those same thoughts about you as well, and never been open. And then all of a sudden you're open and you listen to them. You may not still agree, but you understand their point of view.
Yep.
And they might do the same for you then. And I feel like we've lost that. Like I feel like we have lost that big time in where we're living today, because people get attacked straight away for having an opinion. So it's like there's this big narrative of whatever it is, just in mainstream. There are so many of them, it's hard to count, but there's so many narratives in the mainstream these days. And it's like, if you don't believe in that, if you don't agree with that, then you're cancelled. You're gone. We don't want to hear from you. You're crazy, and they start putting labels on you as well. Like you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're a this, you're a sexist, you're whatever they call you. They label you and put you out to pasture and say, you're done. we don't want to see you anymore.
Yeah.
When it's really just a difference of opinion.
Yeah. And it's because it brought up a whole bunch of fear. And what do we do when we're afraid of something? We want to get as far away from it as possible.
Right.
And you're
Well,
absolutely right. It could be, and that's where, social, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Social media is a huge kind of train when it comes to one person says something, a couple people didn't agree, and then they get all their friends who agree with them on board and they just attack. And
yep.
to watch the frenzy of like, how dare you say that, and I can't believe you said
Yeah.
that, and you need to don't say that, you can't say that. It's like, well, like I didn't say anything, like let's
Yeah.
like kill all the cats, like I didn't say that. Like
Yeah,
I
exactly.
and next you're just wondering like what honestly just happened, and it's because one person didn't like what you said, and they were so afraid of what you said for some reason that
Yeah. And it's like they throw a drop of blood in the water and the sharks come. And it's so interesting what you said about social media today, because I feel like it is, let's be honest, it's a cesspit. And I sound hypocritical saying that because I have social media. It's like a necessary evil though. But it's definitely a cesspit for all that kind of stuff. And what I wanted to ask you actually, when you said that, was because we both grew up basically in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And what a great decade, let's just say that. But
80s
back then, well, okay, we'll have that debate another day. But what I was going to say, though, is back in those decades, you didn't have Twitter, you didn't have Instaface, you didn't have MyTube. Like, you didn't have all of these things where all of this stuff happens. And so if you had an unpopular opinion, it was 5 or 10 people who didn't agree with your opinion. Yeah. But what you would do is you would actually physically interact with other people, and you would find people who not necessarily just agree with you, but like-minded people, and they'd be your friends.
Yeah.
And then if you come across somebody and you just don't gel, like you just don't have a connection, relationship-wise, friendship-wise, doesn't matter. Cool. You just move on. It's cool. Like, no problem. There was no like going to find out on the streets, 50,000 people to all attack you and cancel you in your community. Right. But what happens now is that one person who disagrees with you or says you disagree with us and therefore you need to be out because that's the way that it happens. They can very quickly rally 50,000 people on Twitter or Instaface or whatever. And
mostly on
actually,
Twitter, I find. And Facebook.
Yeah. Yep. And they can actually have a real world impact on that person's life.
Yes.
And they can be removed from, their work, and they can be impacted in all these different ways. But back in those days, in the 80s or 90s, it just didn't exist. Yeah. And what did exist, though, was what I said before about the human connection. Like, these people who get their 50,000 Twitter friends, they're not real friends. They're just people on Twitter. They don't know them. They may disagree on 60,000 other topics with these people, but they call them friends because they agree on one. And they have this common goal of getting rid of and excommunicating the person who's got an unpopular opinion. Yeah. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous to me.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because just because you're fighting for, like, say you're on a crusade and you're supporting someone, whatever it may be, or you're fighting for something, or you have this one belief that's the same. They think this is a good person and this is my friend because we believe in the same thing, and we're fighting for the same thing, or we're moving in the same direction, not ever realizing that there is way more to that person. And that could be, and you nailed it, that could be the only thing they agree on. The only thing. So what happens when they start to have other conversations and they realize, wait a minute, this person doesn't line up with anything that I thought they did. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as we say they're on our side or they are one of us, we automatically paint them with our paintbrush. And we automatically assume that they are going to think, feel, and act the way we do. And they don't, because they are their own human,
Yes.
and we never bothered to find out. So
Exactly.
I think that's how other cancellations and arguments and frenzy start as well. They're like, well, you're a horrible person. I thought you were this. It's like, you never
Exactly.
asked. You never once asked.
Right. It's so true. And I feel like in this day and age, we've moved far more to assumptions than we have to questions when we're meeting people.
Yeah.
It's like the standard thing these days is to look at somebody's Twitter profile and assume everything about them first, or look at a few of their posts, assume everything about them first, decide whether we want to be friends with them or not. And I say that very loosely because to me, honestly, and a real friendship is not just a Twitter follow. Like, that's not a real friendship to me. Okay, I'm not against online friendships, relationships, all of that kind of stuff. But at least, face to face, meeting somebody.
Yeah.
But giving that comparison again back to previous decades, you actually had to engage somebody. Like, you had to meet with somebody and get a feel for each other's body language, ask questions, listen, and then you had to also be what I would call more vulnerable too, because I feel like that's important in all these relationship things, is being vulnerable. You had to do that. But on Twitter, online, when it's purely a faceless relationship or a faceless interaction, you don't have to do that. You just type, yeah, this is what I think or whatever. And nobody really knows. You don't get a feel for anyone's body language or anything like that. So,
and they could be lying.
That's right. They could have their profile picture as, the biggest smoke show in the world, somebody who's a Greek god, and they're actually just, somebody who's sitting in their basement. We don't know. We don't know. But when you look back at when I feel friendships and relationships overall in this kind of opinion-based context, and we're talking about cancellations, the people that you interacted with and were friends with, you actually knew them. Like, you actually really knew them.
You knew them. You hung out with them. You knew where they lived. You maybe knew their family. For me, like, you knew their parents. To this day, a lot of, my friends that I grew up with, their parents are very, very close to my family as well. Brothers, sisters, we're all still very close because you had that human connection.
Right.
Like you can't have that with your Twitter friends or your Facebook friends, because you don't even know what country they live in half the time. You
Exactly.
can't have that. And when you know someone, like when you just know someone and their family and their extended friends that come along the way, it just changes everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's how we built our opinions on people. We built our opinions on how they showed up in the world, their vibration, their actual human spiritual vibration.
Their energy. Like you get a feel of that energy, because you could have somebody online as well that you've never seen before, faceless. And I've actually had an experience, not me. And when I say it happened to somebody else, it actually did. It wasn't me, but they were talking to somebody on the phone, and had one of those situations where they thought, oh, this person sounds amazing. I can't wait. We're just organizing a meetup, and I'm going to stay at this person's house without ever meeting them. And so they did that, and lo and behold, the next day when I caught up with them, they were like, yeah, it didn't go well. They weren't anything like what I expected. And it's like, well, pardon the pun here or whatever, but like, what did you expect? What did you expect to happen, or the result to be, when you didn't bother to even meet this person, Yeah. It's really, really interesting. And I want to say as well that although I stand by everything that I've said so far, the social media is definitely a double-edged sword, I feel, because in the same token that people can be cancelled for having an unpopular opinion, it is good for certain causes and for communication, like you mentioned before, because, there's people that I do know now that I wouldn't have known before, and I wouldn't have met without social media. So I can't be too hypocritical on that side of things. And for causes and movements, you can get a great number of people together to be aware of more important causes.
Yes.
But what I would say from that's from that point of view, but from a human individual point of view, I think it's an absolute cesspit, to be honest, because there are so many more people out there, and that's to do with society as well, that are willing to be negative towards you for no reason, no good reason, than they are to be positive.
Yeah.
Why do we do that? I mean, why do people do that? Jump to negativity before being positive? It bothers me.
It's hardwired into us. It is hardwired into us to always be looking for the negative. That comes from caveman days when everything was out to essentially kill us.
Right.
We always had to worry about the lion, the tiger not getting food. We were always worried about that. But now that we live in such an abundant, well, for the most part, a lot of us are blessed enough to live in such an abundant state that we don't have to worry about where our next meal is coming from for the most part. And we don't need to worry about, is that lion going to come kill me, for the most part. And so we focus on things that just don't matter, like focusing on, that guy's opinion on what celebrity he likes.
Right.
Like, or what his belief system is around, I don't know, same-sex marriage. Like, just because someone has and I feel that people feel that they're being like, something is being forced on them. Like, if I believe every single person should be able to marry who, like, if you want to get married, even though I said, my opinion
Yeah,
is
of
I think
course.
we should do away with it. But I really do feel like everyone should be able to marry whomever they want, whichever human they want. And I know that that is not a popular opinion with a lot of people. And I feel like
Yeah.
they feel, so when I say that and they get all rigid in the back, it's like, well, I'm not asking you to marry someone that you don't want to. I'm not asking you to marry someone of the same
Right.
sex. I'm not forcing it upon you. And what does it does not change the cost of milk for you if
That's right.
two women or two men are in a relationship.
Right. It
If
doesn't
it
change a
doesn't,
thing.
it does. If it's not costing you anything, and honestly, you were fine before you knew about it. So if you
Yeah.
were fine before you knew about it, you should be fine now.
Yep.
And it's
Yeah,
all about
exactly.
the belief system, and it's all about what it's, this is making me uncomfortable and I don't like it, so I need to attack
Yes.
you because I need to make you feel uncomfortable too. I need to make you feel horrible. And and when, like, I don't know, but if I called you, I don't know, a purple monster, would that
Fact.
offend you?
It's just a fact. No, like, because if you this is the thing. If you call me that, what I can do with my personal responsibility as an individual, what I can do is I can say, well, that's stupid, and I don't agree with you. I'm moving on.
Yep.
You are not somebody I need to keep on interacting with if you think I'm a purple monster.
Right.
Send you some love, on your way. Have a great life.
Yep.
That's all I need to do. I don't need to go over to social media. I don't need to call 5,000 friends and say, can you believe what this person said? She said this, and now we need to cancel her.
Yep.
Like, just get her out of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
And I feel like people really struggle to manage their emotions. Like in that moment of somebody not agreeing with you, just let go of that fear. Who cares? You don't put so much emphasis on that person liking you or agreeing with you or whatever. It doesn't have to happen. You don't need that person's validation to move forward in your life. You just don't. And in that example, like, if you called me that, other than the fact that it's completely true, I am a purple monster.
Yes.
But other than that, if you said that to me, I would just say, well, okay, Les, that's great. Your opinion, much love. Move on your merry way, and I'm going to do the same.
Yeah.
That's it. It's finished. It's completely finished there. So
now you said something, and it sparked a thought in me, that it's that fear of this person isn't going to be my friend because we have differencing of opinions. But I wonder if a lot of it has to do with that deep-seated thing of rejection and abandonment, that this person has a different outview on life. And if we don't see the world in the same way, maybe I will be rejected by this person because I don't see it the same way. But at the end of the day, I have plenty of friends that we see life completely different,
Yeah.
completely different. But
Yeah.
we've been friends for like decades. And
Yep.
because we appreciate and we love the fact that we are so different.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a good point, because at the end of the day, every single person is an individual. Every
Mhm.
single person is an individual. You know, you may agree on 99% of things, you may like 99% of things the same as somebody else, but there is always something that, for example, you like doing that I don't like doing, or I like doing that you don't like doing. And
Mhm.
that is 100% okay. That's what makes us the individuals that we are.
Yep.
And having that fear, you're so right, like that fear of maybe if that person doesn't agree with me, then, or we're not on the same page, like, what does that do for me? Am I wrong? Like, there's self-doubt now. I'm doubting myself. What have I thought for all of these years? Is it actually right?
Mhm.
And instead of taking that fear, being open with it, and just exploring what else can be out there, then they hold on to it, get angry with it because they don't want to be feeling it. So it's
Mhm.
like, well, I have to make sure, I have to 100% confirm and shut you down and slam you down so that I feel better about the way I feel.
Yeah.
And I also need all these other people to validate my opinion so that I can prove you're wrong,
Right.
and that your opinion is the wrong one. So I can sit back, have a sigh, and go, oh, I was right. Thank goodness I don't have to look internally and change anything about myself or be open to any new ideas,
Right.
because it's
Well,
scary.
and there it is. I don't know about you, but I've been approached many, many times because, with our YouTube channels and stuff, that I have been
Yeah.
approached and they said, you need to change the way, like if I said, oh, like I prefer this or something, they say, well, you need to change that because it's not right.
Yeah.
Now, a person who isn't confident in who they are, and a person who is still trying to figure it all out, would say, okay, this person is coming at me saying that I'm not going to be accepted if I don't change the way I actually live my life to conform into them.
Right.
But it's not who I am. So why am I conforming? So they're forcing their ideologies, they're forcing their way of life, they're
Mm-hmm.
forcing whatever, or they're trying to anyways, to morph me into this thing that they always thought I was, and
Yeah.
what makes them comfortable. Because if I think like them and if I am like them, then that makes, because we don't like different, then that makes
Right.
them comfortable. But if I do that with every single person who comes around and doesn't like my opinion, I am now multiple copies of different people. I'm a a little bit of a copy of this person and a little bit copy of that person. And then who am I? Oh,
You're nobody.
I, I'm a nobody.
You're actually nobody, right? Because and the other thing too with that, it's such a good point, because if you try and please everybody, or you try and do everything and meet everybody's expectations, because there's a whole lot of expectations. If you try and meet all those expectations, at some point, I feel like it's sort of to visualize it like a circle, like you start at one point with, oh, okay, sure, I'll make sure I do that for you, person, whoever you are. I'll change something for you. And then the next person comes along and you move around the circle and you go, oh, okay, sure, I'll change that part too for this different person. And then it keeps going around in a circle. And eventually you get to right back to nearly the start. And that last person who says, oh, you need to change this way, is actually contradicting the first person who asked you to change. And so you get into this massive spiral of confusion about, well, I'm trying to please that first person, but the last person who asked me to change is actually contradicting and wants me to change what the first person asked for. And so now I'm all over the place in a million different directions trying to please all these people.
Mhm.
And nobody's pleased. Not one of them's pleased, because they all disagree with each other on something. And you're not yourself. You're not even being who you originally were anymore, which for the most part, all those people liked in the first place.
Right.
But because you listen to that one suggestion and then another suggestion and then another suggestion of people wanting you to change because of their expectations,
Right.
now you ended up being nobody.
Right.
end up being nowhere near yourself.
Yeah. And when you start doing that, when someone asks your opinion about something, do you have to go check in with the rest of people?
Exactly.
Like, do I, like, now that I've changed my mind to make so and so happy, like when someone
Yeah.
else asks me about it, like, do I have to go and call so and so and say, hey, like, is this how we feel about it? Like, are we sure? Like, I want to make sure we're locked and loaded on this because I'm going in. And,
You nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed it. Imagine that phone call. Yeah, hello. Yeah, Johnny Blogs. I just wanted to check. I've been asked this question, so can you just let me know what my opinion is on it, please? Right. Okay. Oh, it's that this week. Sure. All right. Got it. For people watching, people listening to the podcast, I was pretending to be on the phone then. But imagine that phone call, ringing somebody up and saying, "Can you tell me what my opinion is this week?" And I feel like that's actually not far from where we are, though, which is
it's not
so ridiculous and mind blowing to me. Mind blowing.
And you another thing you said in there actually sparked another thing where you will have groups of people and wars have been started over this. That's not how we do things. That's not how we think. It's not how,
right.
That's not our opinion. And when they blanket with the whole our opinion, you feel very, very small, I want to say, when you're like, well, it's really not my opinion. I really don't see what you're seeing. I see it kind of differently.
Yep.
Like,
and what is we? Who is we?
The royal we. The royal
exactly.
we, you and I think we've heard that more in the past year than anything. But you do hear it, and you hear it in different I'm just going to say it, in countries, in churches, in Congress, whatever, government, whatever.
Governments, politics, take your pick.
Take your pick.
Even people disagreeing about history as well, you know, like it's happened over and over and over again. And it's so funny that because that it's like, well, hang on a minute. Why do I have to even be part of whatever the we is?
Right.
Where was the contract? Where's my contract? I didn't sign a contract that said I have to do this, think this, feel this way, and have these opinions. Nobody gave me that contract.
Yeah.
I was just told from birth that this is how it is.
Yeah.
But really, when you think about it, and we're going to get into so many more of these topics on the podcast, but when you look at so many other things, religion, reality itself, ancient civilizations, there are so many ideas and different ideas. And what makes that idea the right one in the opinion of all these people? What makes that the popular opinion? It's such an interesting thing, but I can't wait to get into those topics as well. It's going to be fun.
It's true. Well, something just popped up in my head. I remember I said ages ago, and I said, I made a comment. I said, I'm unsure, because someone said, are like flat earth or round earth? I said, I don't know. Because honestly, I don't know. I don't know for certain. I have never been to space to see it from that size. I don't know. And
exactly.
So they automatically assumed I was a flat earther. Secretly, they don't know that I think the world is an actual pyramid. A topic for another day.
Yes.
But they immediately got their back up. They're like, oh, you're one of them. I was like, whoa.
Oh, that terminology, one of them.
I just said I didn't know. That's all I said. I don't know.
Right.
And it turned into they got so angry. I'm like, and I asked them, like, I don't understand why are you so angry? They're like, oh, I'm waiting for you to yell at me. I'm like, well, you just yelled at me. So
yes, exactly. There's two things here. I feel like you're the pot and I'm the kettle. Somebody's calling somebody black here. Like this isn't going how it should. But like, it's so true. It is so true that, and you're right. Like, and I think you actually said that to me. And I was one day, and I was like, you know what? I don't know either. I don't know if the world is flat. I don't know if the world is round. And the popular thing to say, and this is where I think so many people fall down in being open to things and being open to the world and being open to the universe, is the popular thing for me to say in that instance would have been, well, I've seen satellite footage. Well, I've seen footage from the moon. I've seen, like all these things. But what is footage? It's a digital transmission of information that's decoded by something and then put in front of our faces. So have I seen with my own eyes, and we'll get into what our eyeballs and our brains do as far as information as well, and what kind of perceptions that gives us. But in that context, that would be the popular thing to say. Well, I've seen it on TV, I've seen this and I've seen that, but I haven't seen it with my own eyes. Right. So until I see it with my own eyes, I will not say, I know. I have theories, I have ideas, just like you do. But there's nothing in me that says, I know 100%, I have seen that the world is round or flat or a pyramid or some other kind of shape. I don't know. So to be so aggressive about it, and that's what you were saying, like to be so aggressive when it'd be different. I can understand if I was somebody who had a certain belief, like the world's a pyramid, and I went out to the streets and I went up to everybody and I said, you have to believe that the world is a pyramid. Then I can understand aggression in return. Yeah. But when we're asked about it, or it comes up in conversation and we simply say, well, this is what I believe, then those people get angry when we're being very passive. It's like, whoa, man, like, what are you so upset about? Like, why are you getting so emotional? Why are you getting all bunched up? Like it's not something to be getting angry about. It's a thought in someone else's head. So why does that impact you and affect you so much and turn you into this aggressor? I don't get it. I just don't get it.
It's the fear.
Yeah.
It's all down to fear. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we've got so many topics to talk about. Fear is definitely one of them. And it's probably going to come up and be a recurring theme, I feel, in this podcast. But I hope the people out there are feeling like we are giving them some other thoughts to have, just different opinions. And I also want to say to anyone who's listening as well, and I'm sure you share my thoughts here, that if you have opinions of your own, like, we're open to them too. Like, we're open to all kinds of opinions. We're going to talk about ours here, of course, and share what we think, but we're also open to everybody else's ideas and what other people think. If we haven't even thought of something, maybe we haven't thought of something around the topic we're talking about. So
Exactly. That's why these conversations are so good. They're healthy. They're very healthy to have, as long as you go in with an open heart. Just go in with an open heart and open mind. And we don't need to agree. We just need to see it and say, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you see it that way.
Yes.
And see what we can take away from it. Absolutely. Because we don't know, like, we've talked about this before, how we actually, for a lot of the things that we talk about and what we'll be talking on the podcast, we actually don't know. Like, it is literally a lot of opinions and just how we feel about things. And so that's why we're so open, because we don't know.
Exactly. And it might be a scientific topic we're talking about, and we will agree with the science on something, and then it might be a spiritual topic, and we'll agree on that. Or I feel like so many people get closed off as to, no, I'm someone who believes in science, and I'm someone who believes in spirituality, or I'm someone who believes in religion only. And for me, the way I see it is, and it's funny, we talk about pyramids before, it's like of those three things, at least those topics, it should be a triangle. It should be, okay, well, what actually makes sense? What actually makes sense out of the three of those? And what part of that merges in with this and that part with this? And what do we take from that? What can we actually learn from all of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no, I don't feel there's ever one right answer, unless it's 2 + 2 is 5.
Exactly. Or window. You could say window. 2 + 2 equals window.
Window works. Yeah. Window is also a correct answer.
But then I don't know what kind of window it is. Like, there's so many different types of windows.
Double paned, I feel.
The double pane? Well, see, do you like double paned windows?
I've never really thought about it. I have no opinion.
You have no opinion? Well, I'm going to cancel you for that. Like, you have no opinion, you need to have one. And anyone who doesn't have an opinion, I'm canceling today. All gone. But you're right. 2 + 2 does equal 5. And funnily enough, even though that's a little joke, it could be true, because everything's just made up, isn't it? Everything is just fabricated.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good thought to leave everybody with, but I feel like we've had a really good chat today about on this podcast, so about opinions and how everyone's got them. So
absolutely, and everyone is allowed to have them. And I just want to leave everyone with this: your opinion is right. Everyone's opinion is right for them in that moment. There's never a wrong opinion because it's coming from the person who is observing it, who is holding it, who is carrying it through them, with them in their lives. No one is ever wrong with their opinion.
Well said. And I couldn't agree more. It's so true. Everybody's entitled to their opinions, and everyone's opinions are right because it's their opinion. Nobody can make that wrong. So I could completely agree.
Yeah.
So thanks to everybody for listening to episode 1, today's podcast about opinions and how everyone's allowed to have them. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as we enjoyed having the conversation. And of course, we will see you next time.